organizing committee can send out an email to everybody when it's done, so we get everybody's email addresses, so we can do a better job of extending our community to from this group. So today, I wanted to spend some time just talking about what we've been doing as an exec, but I wanted to make sure I'm introducing what about my notes? What did I do? With regard to introduction. So first of all, I want to talk about the executive board. And as you know, and David's done such a nice job of being comprehensive, talking about the TGfU SIG, which is great. So David Gutierrez has been past chair and has been with us for a bit. Heron Kuku is the chair-elect and will be taking over from my role after this conference. Shane Pill, excuse me, sorry, Shane, is a TGfU fellow along with Naoki Suzuki. We added the concept of fellows to have more voices at the table. And hopefully those folks at some point would become chair and chair-elect and past chair, just a hint there, boy. Ellen Gambles, who's our communications director and treasurer and anything else extraordinaire. And Spasia Dana is our incoming chair-elect, and she'll take on that role after this conference. And Jess Rhodes does a lot of communications for us. So we have quite the group and feel very fortunate to have had such a quality group. A little bit of a year in review. So we've had webinars celebrating the 1980s 40th anniversary of the first publications around teaching games for understanding or teaching for understanding. As we are learning, there's a lot of history to that. With Ellen's help and a lot of other people's help and all of you, there was 25 webinars and over 430 to 450 participants. So that's pretty awesome that we were able to keep our community functioning during that time. We also have put together.
Sorry, Linda, to interrupt. Is there any chance you can swap screens? We are watching the smaller one that should appear not as the final present. I think if you put display settings or just swap it.
If not, with a right click, display only screen.
Yeah. Right click, screen only. How's that?
No.
Swap. Yes, that's okay. That's great.
Okay.
Now.
Yes. Thank you. Sorry.
Good job.
So my bad. So this is the cover of the 40th anniversary book. We've just really wanted to again celebrate. I mean, this is a really good time for us to look back and look forward. It's in its final stages, and we'll be able to get that in May. And it's covering as many versions of a games-based approach as we possibly could from different perspectives across the world. So I think it would be an exciting read for lots of folks. We had a games-based statement, and again, David shared that. Well, the process for coming up with a consensus statement was that the executive board discussed, as we all do in higher ed, and then we decided that we talked about process. So the first thing we did was took it to the International Advisory Board, since that's again 27 countries having a discussion around that, and there was a group that put together a version of the statement that went through several drafts and was approved by the International Advisory Board as well as the Executive Board, and then sent out for feedback via the various social medias that have gone on. All right, so let's go back. So again, year in review, we did the games-based statement. We added the concept of TGfU fellows. And again, it was just to gain more voice and representation across the world. And also the idea of not everybody wants to step up and volunteer to serve because it's a big commitment to be chair-elect, chair, and past chair, because it goes, it's about a 6-year commitment. With it, within that you have different roles, but we were thinking that this would help us have a leadership pipeline and also gain different voices, and that's worked out tremendously. Both Shane and Naoki have, again, their wealth of knowledge bringing to that kind of discussion. We started an award structure, and as you can see today, we're rolling out, so to speak, the Len Allman Scholar Lecture, which I think is terrific, that we're honoring Len, but also thinking of an award scheme. And we have a draft of something for Joy Butler, particularly, as we all know, she's like the tenacious, resilient leader of this group as we began. So I appreciate that. At this point, I'm going to turn it to David, and he's going to give us an update from International Advisory Board, what's been going on. And I do have slides, David. Do you want me to move it to the slides? David?
Mike.
Yeah. Okay. As I said in the presentation, for those that haven't been, in the International Advisory Board, which I was chair the last 6 years, we included like, I don't know, but maybe we doubled the number of countries in this period. We also I try, and Ellen worked very hard to include all the information in the website about mainly about what's happening in certain countries. I use this information to group countries in terms of how game-based approaches are developing and established in different countries. Move forward, please, Linda.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, next.
Yep.
Yeah, and in the last 2 years or 3, we developed different programs. The first one was due to the pandemic, and we gathered around 4 different projects that could be used for teachers and parents at home. We developed this infography with different resources, small videos, game designing, how to use social distancing, and they are available in the website, and they are in different languages, which I think is very important thing to do, because it's of course this is very English centered. English is a great tool, but sometimes it's just for scholars. So we have to have in mind that if we want to be at schools, we need to go to our own languages. And well, people in the IAB have been very keen and very kind to translate, which is an effort. And if we do professionally, it will cost so much money, but people do for free and for the love of the approach and kids themselves. Also, the last project was developed in the same way, in the same direction, to develop professional development webinars. The main idea was from Kanae and Jenny Peterson from USA and Canada members. They were really aware that when they using TGfU or game-based approach with coaches with low understanding, even low content knowledge, was too difficult for them. So we tried to summarize and give as materials. So there are 4 webinars that the intention is also to translate into different languages. So next slide.
I only have 2.
Yes, it. Well, also in the IAB was one of the main places to discuss the game-based approach statement. There were a task force discussing for more than 8 months even if just for one sentence, which is crazy, but it works. Finally, I think it is having a good impact and worth the effort very, very well. So that's it. That was the.
Thanks,
what
David.
has been
Awesome.
done. Thank you.
Awesome. We'll be open to questions as we move along. Are there questions up to this point for anybody, or just keep moving?
Just to reinforce how great it is going across multiple languages. I think that's an awesome achievement. Well done.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. So Ellen, update.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. You probably have had 1,000,001 emails from me, so I apologise for spamming your inboxes. Just sort of an update in terms of the communications and my role as treasurer. A lot of the time we have been updating the website. That's sort of a key area so that we can have this centralized zone of resources and videos, etc., that we can have to share with our community. So it's been a big driving force for me in order to ensure this is as updated as possible, and again across the world and different languages. I think one of the big things that many of you will see is that we've been trying to update our resources section in terms of, excuse me, the books, the games-based approaches books, and which ones are published both in English and also in other languages. That is a very extensive list and available to everyone to have a look at. If there are any books or chapter within books that you feel would like to be added, could you please contact me and I will add those to the website. Likewise, if you notice anything else on the website, for example, national organisations or journals, etc., that you feel should be included, could you contact me and let me know? As part of your registration for this conference, you are all invited to a members only section of our website. At the moment, this is currently in development. I'm trying to build it so that it allows you all to log in with a unique email and password, and then you can have access to all of the webinar links today, all of the recordings and the on-demand presentations. Hopefully, as well, as we get more projects coming through the IAB, we would hopefully get some more resources, videos, lesson plans, etc., that you can then have exclusive access to. Your membership allows you to have exclusive access to this members only site for up to a year, so until the end of January 2024. If you would like continued access after that point, it would be through your IASEP membership or the direct payment to the TGfU SIG. So that's kind of what's been happening in terms of the website. We have been trying to tweet as much as we can through Twitter and using Facebook. So thank you if you follow us and have been engaging with those. It's always great to see what's happening around the world. I know a few colleagues have been posting, this is what's happening in our university, this is what's been happening in our schools. So if you do have anything, you are sharing your practice in terms of games-based approaches, please do tag us in your tweets or on your Facebook and share what you're doing. It's great to see that, and then we can retweet it and share with the wider community. In terms of my role as treasurer, we have a bank account and PayPal account. We have these based in the UK, which is where I'm from. They are through a Lloyds Bank, and it allows us to have it set up as an association under UK tax law. This allows us to have that a nice pot of money to be able to utilise in whatever we need to. That's where your registration fees have gone through today. we have a decent amount of money to be able to support the website and other software packages that we use to keep it running, just keep the organisation ticking over. We are a non-profit, so that allows us to just have that money there for when we need to use it in terms of paying for conferences and paying for software, etc. In terms of your future membership, etc., we have different membership options, and this is something that we have been taking back to the executive board to discuss in terms of what are your benefits of being a member of the TGfU SIG. It's very important to notice the difference between our different membership packages. And this is the reason for promoting this members only section on the website in greater detail. We will be giving you an update regarding the different membership packages in the coming months to sort of demonstrate what is the benefits of each package. I think that's all I've got to say. Does anyone have any questions for me? No? Silence. Nope. Fabulous. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellen. So we're to recognition awards. I just have to spend some time just thanking these two people. David has served as a great gap from the loss of Joy Butler. And he's done such a good job with the IAB. It's in great shape. I look forward to taking it over and running with it with all the things he's done. But his service and leadership to the SIG is significant. 10 years is a long time, especially for early morning and late night meetings to keep a global community together. And I just want to recognize his leadership for that. So thank you, David. Ellen, she rocks. I mean, she just admitted this morning on WhatsApp that she made a mistake, and I think it's the first one I've known in the several years I've been working with Ellen. And I think we're very fortunate to have her tenacity to do all the work she's done behind the scenes to make us a social media community and to organize all those webinars and hound us all for various information to keep us going and growing as an international community. So thank you, Ellen, for your service and everything you've done to make this 40th celebration real and something to be very proud of. So thank you. Anybody have anything to say about that? So next on our list is that we have been talking and digging around for information, and it's come up several times around changing the name of the SIG. So the executive board had decided we would bring it up as a topic similar to what we did around the games based consensus statement, to mull around and hear what you have to say about it. Sort of changing the name from TGfU to games-based approaches, SIG, and we can play with the name of that. Our rationale is that it's more inclusive of all the various versions, or as Steve Mitchell would say, various pathways up the mountain. It's better for the collective whole to keep us as a community about games education. It's less confusing to teachers, which we all know we run into that. It has been discussed before, and we have some documentation around that. And so we thought it would be a good time. But I do want to open this up to a discussion, so I'm going to stop my PowerPoint so I can see you as we have this discussion and take notes. So where are we? Okay, so what do people, what are thoughts, reactions? Terrible idea, we'll ruin everything. The sky is falling, a good thing. It's time to do this. We can't do it without voice, though.
Just to say, I had 8 years of this discussion when I was in your role, Linda.
I know, you were part of that, that discussion. I know, Tim. We're bringing it up again.
I'll just clarify. I mean, I was personally on the fence myself. I mean, Wendy and I had lots of conversations. TGfU, the only argument that I ever felt was good was it has not. It's sort of an insignia. Everybody knows it. It's become this sort of advertising thing. But I think the SIG has maybe grown now to a stage where it's not so much the TGfU advertises it. So all emblems can move on. So I'm just sort of saying it may not be as powerful an argument as it was when we first were doing it, because that was what was known. And I remember David saying that in Spain, it was just, they didn't understand teaching games understanding. They just know TGfU as a thing. And that was why it was caught on. But as you go across more languages, that may be getting in the way because it doesn't really embody what the purpose of the approach is. For instance, like USDA's play, practice, play, Tennis Canada and the ITF is play, practice, play. And they've all seemed to grasp that as the sort of, and none of them talk about TGfU. I mean, I was at a session, I'm like, this is TGfU, but none of them have ever read about TGfU, and it was exactly the same thing. So I'm saying now that maybe it's gone its purpose.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that, especially knowing that you've been on the board and been part of those discussions, and you have a rich history with this group. So I appreciate that. Diana.
I have a similar point of view, and I just think it would include a greater audience. I think the TGfU specific audience is relatively small. And I think in terms of everything from our colleagues in sport, coming from a US soccer coaching education background, they are teaching TGfU. They just don't know it. And it's that kind of mindset of very similar that Tim just mentioned. I'm looking at a TGfU session here, and they're not calling it that. And I think there's a lot of layers like that out there. I just think you're going to include a greater audience and make it a little bit more broad and understandable and digestible for people new coming into this.
Thank you, Diana. Deb.
Thank you. I have to say that in previous conversations, I have been someone who has advocated for continuing on as teaching games for understanding because of the very reasons that Tim outlined. But I do think that what we're saying at this moment in the world and also in the evolution of this whole idea, I feel like games-based approaches is more inclusive at a time when we need to be more inclusive. And I also feel like it perhaps better positions people to understand, where this whole approach starts, which is with the game. So I'm in favor at this point of changing to game-based approaches. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. I appreciate it. Raziel. Did you want to speak? Yeah, go ahead. Then Wendy, go ahead. Franciso, go ahead. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being this conference. I want to say with you results of my analysis of the abstracts we have received for the game planning thematic room, and we received 21 abstracts, and TGfU was used in 4 abstracts. In the other, authors used other game-based approaches. So for me, it's a good time to change the name from TGfU to game-based approaches, because around the world, the game-based became more relevant than the TGfU model. and maybe in this way we can also arrive in some places where TGfU is not used, and our community can grow up in this way. So I am in favor to change the name.
I love it. Thank you. And data driven at that. Awesome. Wendy, you had your hand up.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great idea because it does actually, that notion of inclusion is really important, I think. And I think it resonates, having the games, that word in there resonates and attracts a lot across the board. And the other thing is, I think what we've seen as well is that sometimes theory actually comes after practice. So, you know, we've got practice emerging from the ground up, and then we've got theory that will come in after. And I see that now with a lot of the work with complexity thinking, etc. That kind of, you know, it's connected. There's lots of theories that are connected to what we do in teaching and in learning. And I think, you know, having that more generic idea is also, it allows more people in, you know, and it allows us to build better connections across to other groups that are working in, you know, from a different angle with it, I guess. But it allows us to see more of the common connections rather than the differences. So yeah, I think it's great. Yeah.
Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate it. David.
Hi, just an idea that it came the other day discussing this. The discussion is around 10 years, but probably that 10 years ago wasn't the moment. So it's a different timing, I think it's a more global movement now. And something that I like in the way of trying to, well, two things. Firstly, I think we as the scholars, I think mainly we are the scholars here now, we need to move in our publications. Even if you are using play practice or wherever, game-based approach like keyword or wherever. So I think this is something that makes familiar to scholars and practitioners. So we don't have to skip the name of an approach we are using. And the other thing I like is that when we are using teaching games for understanding, and games is the content we are teaching, but here in game-based approach, game is the mean. So it's a different kind of view that for me, as probably because I'm in the faculty of education, and I deal with teachers that will teach other subjects. So that helps me to transfer what I have learned from teaching games for understanding to other subjects or other contents. So it's game-based. And also we have to think about how to clarify game. It's not a ludic, but something contextual, experiential, globally. So to do this kind of travel trip from the meaning of the name, the meaning of the game here. So that's something that I'm really enjoying working with Alan. I think that's very important. It will allow us to understand more and to spread the knowledge we understand we have done with TGfU.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that perspective. It also, the game brings us back to the notion of play, which is something we just quite don't do enough of, right? So maybe we can even capture that. I see you, Claudio. I had to stop my facilitation and add my 2 cents. So Claudio, go ahead.
Thank you. So I actually think that the game-based approach actually reinforces the legacy of teaching games for understanding, because otherwise it might be the tendency for some approaches to try to stand by themselves and kind of forget what was behind, what led to it. So in a sense, I think it's actually reinforces the legacy of teaching games for understanding, because it clearly maintains that connection, because where those game-based approaches come, and I speak, for example, in my country, when we have developed two game-based approaches that are game category specific, and because we were able to connect to teaching games for understanding more clearly, so that made us to want to keep that legacy, to wanna not to stand by itself, but because we feel that's common connection to each origin. So I know that in some countries, like Tim was telling before, some countries, like for example in Brazil, I know some literature that they come up with new stuff, but which is not new, and they forget all that is behind. That is something that I particularly don't like. I don't think it's the way, but it happens. So just this. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudio. One of the things I just want to point out is an amazing thing. There is a group of folks, teachers, hopefully, but even teacher educators and researchers and folks in higher ed who always have to write and create their own little thing and call it something different. And right now we are witnessing a group of people coming together to say, no, we need to pull those strands together and become one big community under one umbrella. And it's time to do that. And I applaud us for doing that. I mean, it's huge. That doesn't happen. Usually I spend times in meetings and something's decided, and the next time we have the meeting, we've undone it. So, I can't thank this group enough for providing this kind of input. And it just seems like it's time. Is there anybody else that wants to say anything before okay, Rebecca.
Hi, sorry I'm driving, but I think it's kind of nice because in a way, like the word understanding, the way I've kind of learned about TGfU is that it comes from a cognitive decision-making frame. And, you know, when we think about so many ways of knowing and being and how we're really shifting and complexifying what that word can mean, I think by taking it out, we have, like you say, that focus on games and the experience and different ways of how we might be approaching even the word understanding. So I think it's interesting. It's going to open up, I think, more possibility. And I think it sounds like a good idea.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. Go ahead, Stuart.
Yeah, just a point of application realistically. The TGfU 6-step procedural model, we're very limited in terms of time for physical education today. So using a game-based approach, game, practice, play, may be easier for application within today's physical education, within the K through 12, pre-K through 12 programs. Coming from a PEAK program, we always have to take that into consideration, teaching our students to understand the process, but then ultimately, is it applicable? Can we actually do it within physical education? Just a point to consider.
Excellent. Tim, thank you.
Just a very minor thing. I'm assuming we're pluralizing, right? Game-based approaches rather than game-based approach.
Correct.
So, right. I'm just wanted to make sure that was good.
That's the goal. Anybody else? So process will be that, thank you for this feedback. This will go back to the executive board and then out to the International Advisory Board, the IAB, and we'll see what happens there. And we'll be making some statement moving forward for everyone to view on various platforms of social media that you use, and stay in contact with us. And I appreciate that. So with regard to the rest of our meetings so far, is that I do want to welcome Aspasia. We're very fortunate to have her come in as chair-elect, and happy to pass the gavel to Heron as we move forward. There is a ISEP, as you know. One of the things that's happened, which is I'm really grateful for, is we've always been connected to ISEP. There is a new group of officers within ISEP, and they have done a reach out to us as a special interest group. As you know, there is an early childhood special interest group within ISEP, and both groups, I think, are having a commitment to do more communicating back and forth and keeping those channels open. To that end, we've always had a tradition of when we haven't had a conference, and this sounds ridiculous that I'm even telling you this, prior to 2020, there was conferences every X years we get together as a group of teaching Gates for Understanding, and then there was the seminars which were held at ISEP. So we're trying to reestablish that. That's where I'm going. So since we were to have a in-person conference in 2020 in the UK, and that has completely failed, we were able to get together, but under a very different kind of format. So there is a ISEP Chile conference in July, and we want to be able to make sure we have a presence because of the tradition, and it's so important for us to do that in discussing, and so we want to do that. So one of the things that came up this morning and in a discussion with David as we were waiting for everyone to come in to the platform is the idea of maybe leveraging some of the pre-recorded things that are already out there and take them on, put them into a small session and hybrid session at the Chile conference. We're online, but then they have their presentations and they actually will be live to discuss their presentations. So it's a very thoughtful and careful workaround without having the idea that we don't have somebody from Chile represented. So, I know when I had taken on the pre-conference for Edinburgh, and it worked out fine, but it was constant communication with the folks in Edinburgh because we wanted a gymnasium, and if we're going to be in person, that was the ideal. So I think David's idea is a good one, and we'll take it back to the exec to have a presence, but we'll keep informing you any discussion topics, responses, reactions for that. Okay, hearing nothing. We're hoping to do some strategic planning. It's probably a little bit of a as chair, like I see strategic planning, I kind of go into shakes. It just makes me think of my day job. But we probably has a good time with new officers and the second year with the fellows in to really re-examine who we are and where we're going now that we've had the celebration. How do we move forward? So we will be doing that. And the last but not least is we really committed to an in-person conference in 2024, the TGfU or whatever we are at that point conference in Auckland, New Zealand, and it's been there before, and I know it was a smashing success. So stay tuned for that. It looks like it might be in November, but they're still working out details and seeking. They have a new facility. They're trying to hope that is online by that time, and so it's all very, very, very exciting. So any comments? Really, that's what we wanted to share with you, so that you're in the loop. And hate the word transparency, but in the spirit of trying to be upfront and making sure the community knows that we have been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, we wanted to make sure we were sharing as much as we've been doing, and know that we appreciate the following that you give. So thanks, Wendy. Anybody comment, questions at this point is where we are with the meeting. I have nothing more, unless the executive board has something more. All right, so this was supposed to go to 9:30, so we have a break. So we're back at 9:45. So now you actually go eat something, walk around, take a walk, and we'll see you at 9:45 for the inaugural Len Allman lecture. So thank you so much.